Let's get to the big story breakdown. Well, earnings season is underway. Big banks and chip names driving market action this week. Strong guidance from chip giant Taiwan Semiconductor lifted AI-related shares, and bank stocks rallied following solid earnings from major Wall Street players. Investors also rotated into smaller companies, with the Russell 2000 outperforming the Nasdaq as well as the S&P 500. Now, the move reversed Wednesday's decline when tech stocks dragged the broader market lower and reignited a shift away from mega caps toward value names. Well, joining me this morning to weigh in is Peter Tuchman, senior floor trader at TradeMas. Peter, happy Friday. Great to have you here.
Happy Friday. Good morning, everybody.
Well, first and foremost, here we are, the second full trading week of 2026 in the books. So we saw record highs for the Russell 2000 yesterday. So would you say there's a market rotation going on?
100%. I think it's like a repositioning of portfolios. You know, because I don't think people have a lot of clarity about what the next move of the market is going to be. We're sort of butting our head up against some technical levels here. Obviously, you know, Dow 50,000 and S&P 7,000 have been shown us a little bit of resistance, and it feels like they're not going to let us get there easily. We're going to have to work for it. That's kind of the feeling I get. And that happens sometimes, right? It's just a technical move. So what is the next thing that's going to catalyze this market higher? And you know, and it's a little bit frustrating. You know, I mean, I think this week we're starting to see, you know, obviously the Russell is trading a little bit higher, and if it's curious enough, one day we were up a couple hundred points and the SPYs were up, and then one day we were down. But if you look at the advances versus declines, they've been 50-50 across the week, and kind of, so that means to me that people are literally getting out of some of their higher flyers, and they're getting into some nice mid cap, small cap. That's obviously what the Russell is, and so people are looking for value. They're taking a little bit of profits on their tech names, and they're getting into some smaller mid cap value, which is fine.
Yeah, and Peter, we're about to head into a holiday weekend, so that means markets will be closed next Monday. So given everything that's happened this week, from politics to geopolitics, we still saw gains for the major equity averages. And given the elevated levels for the Dow, S&P 500, Russell 2000, what does this mean? And can we expect more of an advance going forward?
You know what? I would hope so. Look, we do know there's an old Wall Street adage that says, as January goes, so does the market for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Right? Historically, if you have a super solid January, it purports the rest of the year. I'm not, you know, you and I have talked about seasonality for a long time, and the market has not lived up to its seasonality expectations for a while now. We know that September and October were supposed to be softer, and they were really robust this year, and November was supposed to be the strongest month, and it was not by far not the strongest month. You know what, look, I'm excited about the market going higher. I'm just not sure what the next catalyst is going to be. I think there is so many moving parts that are really we're not deciding. People are trying to put their teeth into something, and I'm not sure what it is. You know, obviously there's a lot. This morning I was sort of reading some of the news and really kind of worried whether we are going into Iraq, right? I mean, into Iran, excuse me. You know, so there's a lot of geopolitical unrest, right? We're still not clear what the Venezuela story was about and how that's affecting the energy markets. We're not sure about what's going on in the Middle East. That's another thing. And so, you know, taking that into account, then you've got earnings on the banks coming out of the gate, which were mixed at best. And then you've got that whole interest rate story, you know, and then there was that contentious spat that we had over the weekend, which was real in a lot of different ways. And so I think people are sort of sitting back, sort of positioning themselves, but I think everybody is in a little bit of a pause. Are we inching a little bit higher? Absolutely. Are we getting closer to that wonderful S&P 7,000 and Dow 50,000 level? Absolutely. Within 500 points in the Dow, at one point we were as close as 13 or 20 points in the S&P. So we're getting closer and closer. I'm just not sure what the next move is going to be.
Yeah, and you bring up an important point, because we have talked on FinTech TV that markets don't like uncertainty. So when we take a step back and look at the things we can be sure of, it is a midterm election year in 2026. And in terms of Federal Reserve, we know what to expect, at least for the January meeting. And next week, Davos will be kicking off over in Europe. And that is something that we'll be paying attention to, especially given the fact that global leaders and executives will be there. So what are you paying attention to as the upcoming holiday shortened week comes?
So look, you know, holiday weekends, you know, leave a lot of uncertainty around, because we know that's 3 days where the news is just sort of rampant. They're running around, and we're going to be, you know, obviously there's potential for all kinds of catastrophes. I was speaking with Dan Ives last night, actually, because he is going to Davos. And, historically, we've had a lot of amazing things come out of Davos. Some things are positive, some things are not so positive. We do know, going back to Trump 1.0, that amazing day that I've called into question a number of times when Mr. Trump mentioned China and tariffs, and we went down 1,400 points that morning at 11 o'clock, and we ended up closing up 1,400 points. That was a Davos experience. So the thing about Davos is all eyes are on it. Everyone is listening. And, whether it's Fed talk, whether it's global talk, whether it's geopolitical talk, whether it's, you're talking about what we did stir up by going into Venezuela was some of the most powerful countries in the world are all on edge about what that was all about.
Yeah.
You've got, look, who are the largest oil producers in the world? You've got Venezuela, Iran, right, Russia, China, U.S., and I think that's it. And so, these are not our biggest buddies in the world. And so everybody, and as we look at Mr. Trump, he's sort of positioning himself, looking like he's making inroads into other countries. And I'm not sure these leaders are going to be that thrilled about that. They don't particularly like that because they're going to all be on edge, especially China and Russia, right? And then Iran too. We do see so much unrest in that country right now, and as we watch that, it's pretty distressing. So the world seems like it's shifting, and then how much effect is that going to have on our market? I'm not that sure, but I think the interest rate thing is going to be one of the most pressing things.
Well, Peter, we will have to leave it there. So you and I will be back here next Friday together. So
yes,
have a great
we will.
weekend.
We're missing out
Thank
on
you.
Monday. Happy trading, everybody.